For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council was the unshakable pillar of civilization, an alliance of ancient, powerful species who had brought order to a chaotic galaxy. They had judged humanity, a young and troublesome race, and cast them out. For 3 years, there was silence. A silence the Council mistook for victory. But what happens when the silence begins to echo with the sound of a crumbling galaxy? What if the primitives they exiled were the only thing holding their perfect order together? And what terrible truth awaits when the Council is finally forced to seek answers from the ghosts they created? This is the story of the reckoning. The day the Council was left to answer for its actions. Before we dive into the wreckage of a fallen empire, take a moment to subscribe and reinforce our channel. Your support is the critical component that keeps our systems online. All right, the silence is about to break. Let's begin the story. The lights in the Great Crystal Dome flickered. It was a small thing, a momentary dimming of the grand, star-like chandeliers that had burned uninterrupted for 5,000 years. Most of the delegates in the Galactic Council chamber didn't even notice, lost as they were in a heated debate over dwindling dilithium production in the Outer Rim. But High Mediator Anya Sharma of the Azirian Republic noticed. She felt the flicker in her bones, another small tremor in the foundations of a crumbling galaxy. 3 years. It had been 3 years since humanity's great departure. 3 years since the Council, in its infinite, arrogant wisdom, had voted to expel the upstart, emotional humans. 3 years of a silence that had, at first, felt like peace. Now it felt like the slow, cold march of entropy. And the production shortfall is now at 17%, droned the delegate from the mining guild. We simply cannot maintain the equipment. This is a local matter of industrial incompetence, boomed Praetor Forlag, the Ctheran leader who had championed the human expulsion. He looked a century older now, his black chitin less lustrous, his movements slow and heavy with a weariness that went beyond his years. The Council cannot be bogged down by every minor system failure. Anya Sharma stood, her slender blue form a beacon of calm in the chaotic chamber. High Praetor, with all respect, this is not a minor failure, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. A holographic display bloomed above her console, showing a web of interconnected systems across the galaxy, all blinking a critical red. This is the 17th major infrastructure collapse this cycle. The dilithium refineries use human-designed magnetic containment protocols, the same protocols that are failing in our long-range communication relays. The translation matrices are now degrading at a rate of 1.7% per cycle, leading to diplomatic incidents and trade breakdowns. The very medical synthesizers that saved your own broodkin during the Crimson Plague, synthesizers designed and maintained by human scientists, are now malfunctioning across 3 entire sectors. This is not a storm we can weather, Praetor. The foundation of the house is crumbling. Warlord Cthar, a younger, more aggressive Ctheran who had risen to power on an anti-human platform, slammed his massive claw on his console, cracking the crystal surface. Enough about the humans. They were a cancer. Arrogant, uncooperative parasites who refused to share their military technology and ignored our sacred cultural standards. They were taught a lesson in humility. Anya Sharma met his furious, multifaceted gaze. And now we are the ones learning, she thought, but did not say. That night, in her private chambers overlooking the decaying capital city, Anya reviewed the endless stream of data. The holographic displays painted a picture of a galaxy in its death throes. It wasn't just that things were breaking. They were breaking in a specific, terrifyingly logical pattern. A pattern that led back, always, to the ghosts of the departed humans. Her assistant, a young praxi named Trill, entered with a new data slate, her vibrant feathers ruffled with anxiety. Mediator, the report from the Centauri sector. Another human outpost found abandoned. Like the others, it was stripped bare. They didn't leave so much as a processing chip behind. Anya nodded grimly. They packed for a long journey, Trill, almost as if they knew they weren't coming back. Trill lowered her voice, a nervous habit. There is something else. The 3 deep space research vessels the Council sent to chart former human space, the Pathfinder, the Seeker, and the Voyager, they've gone silent. All 3, at the exact same time. Anya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the failing climate controls in the spire. No distress signals. No debris. No wreckage. They had simply disappeared from the universe. The investigation began in earnest. Peter Forlag, his political power waning as the crisis deepened, had no choice. His pride finally shattered by the sheer scale of the galactic collapse, he reluctantly appointed Anya to lead a special, all-encompassing task force. Her mandate was simple and desperate: find a solution by any means necessary. Her first stop was the mining world of Carthus Prime. A year ago, it was the jewel of the Council's resource production, a bustling hub of activity. Now, the planet was eerily quiet. The massive, continent-sized excavation machine sat silent on the horizon like the corpses of metal gods. Foreman Drux, a stocky Brennari whose rocky skin seemed to be physically cracking under the strain, met them at the spaceport. "Hi, Mediator," he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "I hope you bring solutions, not more questions. We have answered enough council surveys while our world dies around us." "Show me the problem, Foreman," Anya said, her voice gentle but firm. Drux led them to the main control center, a cavernous chamber filled with complex, silent machinery. Half the display screens were dark, flashing cryptic error messages in a forgotten dialect of old Terran English. "The humans designed these systems," Drux explained, gesturing with a heavy, stone-like hand. "They adapted their own technology to work with our physiology. Our hands. We are strong, but we cannot manage the fine manipulations their interfaces require. For 20 years, human engineers lived here. They worked alongside us. They trained our people, but not completely." Anya finished for him, the grim pattern becoming all too familiar. Drux nodded, a slow, painful gesture of profound weariness. "They always handled the most complex core matrix repairs themselves. They called it proprietary maintenance. Too delicate for your hands, old friend," my human counterpart, a man named David, used to say. I thought he was being protective of his job. The foreman's rocky features hardened. Now I think he was being prescient. They were our allies. Or so we believed. Anya's lead engineer, a grizzled veteran named Korix, spent hours trying to interface with the systems. He returned, covered in grease and frustration. "Mediator, it's like nothing I've ever seen. The hardware is robust, simple even. But the software, it's not logical. It's intuitive. It's like this machine expects the operator to feel what's wrong with it. There are no diagnostic subroutines, no error logs. Just this one recurring message on the main screen." He pointed to a single line of human text, stark against the black screen. "User verification failed. Please contact a certified human technician." The pattern repeated at Meridian Station, the once gleaming crown jewel of intergalactic trade. The station was now a ghost town, whole sectors dark and abandoned due to cascading power failures. Station Administrator Vela, a tall, elegant Andorian, showed Anya the primary medical center. Advanced diagnostic beds and surgical suites, all of human design, gathered dust. "Their doctors and technicians ran our best facilities," Vela said, her voice hollow. When the Council's expulsion ruling came down, there was an unfortunate wave of anti-human sentiment. Security checks, movement restrictions, public shaming. Most of our human residents chose to leave before it got worse. We thought we could manage. We thought their assistants, their trainees, could take over. And they couldn't? Anya asked. "It wasn't a matter of skill," Vela said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It was a matter of loyalty. The best of them, the non-humans who had trained under the humans, who had built lives alongside them, they didn't stay to take their jobs. They left with them. The humans didn't just take their expertise, Mediator. They took their friends, too." The breakthrough, if it could be called that, came from Anya's lead data analyst, a brilliant, hyperactive Vortigern named Klix. For weeks, he had been Chaz. The digital ghosts the humans had left behind, the fragments of code in the decaying systems. "Mediator, you must see this," he chirped, his multiple eyes blinking in a rapid, excited sequence. He brought up a holographic display showing a section of code from a universal translation matrix. It was impossibly complex, a beautiful, terrifying work of art. "It is not sabotage," Klix explained, his claws flying across his console. "It is planned obsolescence on a galactic scale. It is horrifyingly elegant. A work of pure, passive-aggressive genius." He highlighted a small, seemingly innocuous subroutine. Look, the humans didn't plant viruses or backdoors. They built their systems with cascading dependencies. This minor subroutine, for example, requires a maintenance update every 500 cycles. That update must be run using a human-calibrated quantum tuner to account for what their nodes call linguistic drift. If the update isn't run, the system doesn't crash. It simply degrades its translation accuracy by 0.01%. A tiny, unnoticeable decay. Anya breathed, the full, horrifying scope of the human plan beginning to dawn on her. Precisely, Clix chirped. But there are thousands of these tiny, deliberate, conditional degradations across tens of thousands of critical systems. They compound. They create a symphony of slow, inevitable collapse. They didn't break anything on their way out, mediator. They just built it so that only they could keep it from breaking on its own. He pointed to another discovery, and they left messages. Encrypted data fragments, woven into the very structure of the decaying code. It's a puzzle, scattered across the galaxy. We only have a few pieces, but I think they wanted someone to find it. Someone like you. Then came the second blow. An emergency session was called. An alarm, unheard for centuries, a sound of pure, primal dread, blared through the spire. The Scourge fleet has breached the quarantine zone in the Outer Rim. The Council's fleet admiral reported, his voice tight with raw panic. They've launched a massive, surprise invasion into the Naudi-stabilized Ryden sector. Our long-range sensor nets, the nets that gave us weeks of warning, they're offline. We're fighting blind. Anya felt her blood run cold. The Scourge, an ancient, predatory enemy, a fleet of cybernetic wolves that had been contained at the galactic border for centuries by a series of deep space monitoring stations and quiet, effective patrol fleets. Later that night, working with a feverish intensity, Clix decrypted another piece of the human puzzle. It was not a piece of code. It was a fragment of a highly classified Terran military report, dated just 6 months before the departure. It showed a small, sleek human fleet, designated Task Force Chimera, engaging and utterly destroying a Scourge scout fleet in a brilliant, brutal ambush. The report was appended with a single line from the human fleet commander. Threat neutralized. The Council remains unaware, maintaining the silent watch. Anya stared at the screen, the words burning into her mind. The silence from the Outer Rim for the last few centuries hadn't been peace. It had been a wall defended by human blood and courage. They weren't just our engineers and doctors, she whispered to Trill, her voice choked with a terrible, profound shame. They were our silent guardians. They were fighting and dying in wars for us that we never even knew existed. As the Scourge invasion tore through the helpless Outer Rim and the Council's crippled fleets struggled to mount a disorganized defense, a new development sent a fresh wave of panic through the government. 3 member worlds, the Trillari, the Vox Collective, and the Andari Federation, formally declared their independence from the Council. Their joint announcement cited irreconcilable differences in governance philosophy and a desire to form a new galactic association based on principles of mutual respect and cooperative development rather than hierarchical control. Anya recognized the language immediately. It was taken almost verbatim from foundational human political texts. These were not just random species. These were the so-called minor powers that had worked most closely with human development teams for decades. The humans hadn't just left. They had taken the best and brightest of the next generation with them. It was in the midst of this political and milita why chaos that a single, unidentified, impossibly sleek vessel appeared at the very edge of Council space. It broadcast a simple, repeating message on a secure, encrypted diplomatic channel. Special Envoy Kenji Tanaka of the Human Concordat requests permission to speak with High Mediator Anya Sharma. The Council hardliners, led by Warlord Kthar, were furious. A trap. An act of aggression. They have returned to finish us off. Destroy them. But Praetor Forlag, now a broken, humbled leader of a dying government, silenced them. No, we will hear what they have to say. He looked at Anya, his multiple eyes filled with a desperate, pleading hope. You will meet him. The meeting took place on a neutral station orbiting a dying star. Kenji Tanaka, the same quiet, polite man who had walked out of the Council 3 years ago, was calm, professional, and radiated a quiet confidence that was more intimidating than any weapon. He came right to the point, dispensing with diplomatic pleasantries. "Let me be clear, mediator," he began, his voice still even, but now with an edge of cold steel. "I am not here to negotiate humanity's return. That era is over. The Council, as a political entity, has proven itself to be a failure. I am here to observe the final stages of its systemic dissolution and to offer asylum to any individuals or species of proven merit who wish to join a more forward-thinking civilization." It was a declaration of victory, delivered with a polite, devastating, and utterly merciless smile. He revealed the truth of the human concordat, an entirely new, multi-species alliance, built in the secret, silent spaces beyond the Council's maps. 17 species strong and growing, technologically superior, socially vibrant, and utterly independent. Enraged by this ultimate, final insult, Warlord Cthar and the hardliners convinced the reeling Council to make one last, desperate, pathetic show of force. They dispatched a task force of 20 of their best remaining warships to escort the human envoy out and deliver a message of intimidation to the Concordat. The fleet reached the designated coordinates. They began their aggressive, chest-thumping maneuvers. And then, one by one, their ships went dark. On the bridge of the Council flagship, the commander watched in abject horror as his systems shut down in a clean, orderly, pre-programmed sequence. Navigation, weapons, engines. Finally, primary life support switched to emergency reserves. A single, calm message appeared on his main screen, written in perfect, formal Council standard. System integrity protocol, human. Verification failed. Initiating safe mode shutdown. Please contact a Terran-certified technician for assistance. The fleet was left drifting, helpless, defeated without a single shot being fired. Envoy Tanaka's ship sent them one final message before turning to leave the system. "It seems your vessels require maintenance. We are detecting multiple critical system failures. Our sincerest apologies for the inconvenience. Shall we send a tow?" The humiliation was absolute. It was the last straw for Cthar. That night, in a fit of blind rage, he launched a coup, attempting to seize control of the Council spire and declare a total, suicidal war on the Concordat. The coup failed in less than an hour. The spire's central security grid, the door locks, the internal defense systems, the communication network that he tried to use to broadcast his martial law decree. All of it had been designed or significantly upgraded by humans. At the critical moment, the systems did not just fail. They turned on him. Doors sealed his elite troops in dead-end corridors. Defense shields protected the loyalist forces. And his treasonous orders were broadcast on a loop to the entire complex, accompanied by a rather jaunty piece of classical human music. By morning, Cthar and his followers were in chains, their rebellion thwarted by the ghosts of the very technicians they had so arrogantly exiled. In the aftermath, with the old hardline guard disgraced and imprisoned, Anya Sharma was named acting praetor of a dying government. Her first and only act was to send a message to Kenji Tanaka. Not a demand, not a negotiation, a plea. "We surrender," the message said. "We are broken. We are asking for your terms." The delegation took place not in Council space, but at a new, gleaming station called Harmony, the diplomatic hub of the Concordat. It was a vibrant, living place, filled with dozens of species working together as equals, their faces filled with a hope that had long since died in the Council's territories. Here, the final, crushing secrets were revealed. The Concordat hadn't just been building a new society. They had perfected a new form of faster-than-light travel. The Alcubierre Drive, a technology that didn't require the ancient, decaying jump gates that the Council had used to control interstellar travel for millennia. They were building their own, independent jump gate network, open to all peaceful travelers. The Council's last lever of power, control of travel, was gone forever. Kenji Tanaka, now flanked by representatives from 16 other species, the Xylans, the Trillari, and others, presented the Council delegation with the Concordat Council Accords. It was not a treaty of subjugation. It was a lifeline. The Concordat offered limited, targeted technological assistance, enough to stabilize their collapsing medical, agricultural, and power systems. In exchange, The council would formally recognize the Concordat, renounce all claims on their territories, and begin a process of radical, painful reform, dismantling its own corrupt, hierarchical structure under Concordat observation. Peter Forlag, now just a simple, weary delegate from a fallen empire, looked at Anya as she prepared to sign the document that would save his civilization but forever end its age of dominance. "We thought we were casting out a disruptive child," he said, his voice a low rumble of profound, soul-shattering regret. "We didn't realize we were evicting the architect, the doctor, and the soldier, all in one. We didn't banish you, mediator." He paused, the terrible, final truth dawning in his ancient eyes. "We orphaned ourselves." Anya signed the accords. It was a somber, new beginning for the galaxy. Not a glorious victory, but a quiet, necessary repair. A repair job led by the quiet helpers who, after 300 years of being ignored, had finally, reluctantly, been forced to take charge.